Oh, welcome to the Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. You figured that out because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. It is 10 something a.m. It's fine. Everything's fine. USA, USA. Hey, Americans won the gold medal in U.S. men's hockey, U.S. women's hockey. It is a great day to wake up in these United States of America as Canada has now officially lost the one thing that they were supposed to be better at than the United States of America. It is over. I don't know what else is left. If you're Canadian right now, and I know that some of you out there who tune into the show regularly are in fact Canadian, I don't know. I don't know I don't know what you should do. I don't know where you go now. What's that, maple syrup? Do we go for the syrup? Do we go for sports betting ads that have no inducements? Do we go for that like Ontario has? What else do we go for? What makes Canada uniquely Canadian? Oh, we've got everybody has health care. Everybody has health insurance. It takes 4 months to see a doctor, but we have health insurance. Okay. What do you do if you're Canadian today? The one thing that you couldn't lose, the one thing that you should not have theoretically lost, the one thing that you were supposed to have the superiority over these United States of America is hockey. And boy, it fell apart. Now, I will say, and I have a few things to kind of touch on really quickly when it comes to the gold medal game that we saw on Sunday. But I do want to note a couple of things. One, I thought it was very cool that we saw both in the U.S. and in Canada that governments opened up restaurants and bars earlier, right? Like I am glad to see that they allowed for people to get to experience fully, I guess, the gold medal game. Okay? That is one thing. Now, do I totally endorse the idea of going and getting hammered at like 8:30 in the morning? No, I think that's actually a terrible idea. But the idea of community and the idea of being able to go out to your favorite restaurant, your favorite bar, your favorite local brewery and taking in the game, I think is very cool. I will note that game was about as maddening as any game I have watched in a long time. The first 20 minutes of the U.S. versus Canada, I thought was a pretty well contested matchup. Teams getting opportunities both ways. I genuinely felt that in my heart and in my soul. But the last 40 minutes of regulation, for the most part, I would say Canada dominated 38 and a half of those minutes, right? Like it was an absolute obliteration of the U.S. squad, especially that second period felt like for the better part of 18, 19 minutes in the period, it felt like a power play. It felt like a sustained power play for Canada. Now, there are moments and opportunities in this game that will stand out forever, right? There are. I will note, I put out a tweet and I pissed off a lot of Leafs fans, which I knew were already kind of crazy and delusional and not exactly like tied into reality. I found a lot of those people because while they were clearing off the tears, they were dabbing away the tears on their Leafs sweater or maybe their Canada sweater. They then had to go out and defend Austin Matthews, which we'll get to in a second. But there were multiple opportunities in this game for Canada to put this game away. I would argue that it probably should have been like 6-1 at the end of regulation, at worst 4-1. But Connor Hellebuyck played the game of his life. Connor Hellebuyck has now, in my mind, exercised the demons and silenced the critics who said he's not a big game goalie. That has to be done and dusted at this point. The man played absolutely out of his mind in every conceivable way. Connor Hellebuyck is as responsible as anyone for this game. And yeah, Jack Hughes is the one who ultimately finishes off that game and wins the gold medal for the U.S. in overtime. But you're not there if Connor Hellebuyck doesn't play out of his mind. There are multiple moments, as I said, though, that will stand out as ones that on one hand, I think you probably sit back if you're a U.S. fan and you're incredibly grateful for. And then if you're a Canadian, you don't feel as great about. The one that I really want to go out to first is this incredible save that Hellebuyck made. I mean, they need to hang this in the Louvre. Or at the very least, they need to hang it in like the Hockey Hall of Fame or something. Like this was absolutely incredible. This was easily one of the most amazing images that we saw. I'll take the comments down here for a second. But like this play, this save on Taves by Hellebuyck, where like in real time you thought, oh, Taves must have just somehow missed this and like sent it wide. No. Hellebuyck somehow recovers and makes that save with the paddle. I mean, like, look at that. Look at that save. That's incredible. To get his stick on it like he did and deflect it away, that's an otherworldly save. I guarantee if most of us tried to do that on ice right now, we'd end up with like a torn labrum in our hip, right? We'd end up with, at the very least, a sports hernia. You might even tear something in your shoulder trying to snap your arm back that fast. Connor Hellebuyck was absolutely incredible in this game. And like I said, if you were ever concerned, or you ever thought that, like, hey, he could get it done in the regular season, or he can get it done at moments that don't matter that much, when you watch this happen, your biggest takeaway has to be that were it not for him, the U.S. is not in that game. The U.S. does not force overtime. And, like, it's also probably worth noting that, like, he made a save that actually kind of got things going the other way on that game-winning goal. Hellebuyck was incredible. Absolutely unbelievable in this game. Now, there are other moments that I think are going to stand out, right? Like, I think that there's a really rough moment in this game that Nathan McKinnon is going to have stick with him for a while. This was the moment that if you wanted to believe there was going to be a chance for the U.S. in this game, this is the one that made you feel like they might have had maybe not divine intervention, but they certainly had something going for them that day. This was it right here. Nate McKinnon buries this 100 out of 100 times. I'm not even going to say 99 out of 100 times. He buries this 100 out of 100 times. If we were going to take this out of 100,000 times, he misses this shot 1 out of 100,000 times. It's that minuscule of a likelihood that he misses this. He had a wide open net. Hellebuyck's on the other side. This is a shot that Nathan McKinnon, who many would argue is one of, if not the best player in the world. You always have the people who debate between McKinnon and debate Connor McDavid. Some would argue that McKinnon is a more well-rounded player than McDavid. If you want to say he's in your top 2, your top 3, whatever number, he certainly doesn't fall out of your top 5. Nathan McKinnon buries this shot 99,999 times out of 100,000. This just happened to be the one time that he didn't. The reason that this one stands and looms so large is because post-game, he had a quote that I think ultimately is just like the biggest loser energy. And I get that you're disappointed. I do. Like, I can't imagine what it feels like to be this good, right? And to be at this level. But he had a quote that I thought was actually kind of insane. This is Nathan McKinnon after the game. This is after Canada loses the gold medal game to the U.S. He says, quote, "It's been close for a while. You know, they're an amazing, skilled group of players. I just felt like it wasn't going to be. You guys can be the judge of who the better team was tonight. But they won. We lost." Now, that's the full quote. Because there were people who were going out and just putting out the, "you guys can be the judge of who the better team was tonight." That was the quote that went viral. That's the extended quote. I'll actually bring it up here on the screen for everybody to see, just in case you're, hell-bent on, for whatever reason, wanting to see this in totality. But this is the quote. This was Nathan McKinnon's full quote about what happened in that game and whether or not Canada was the better team or not. Now, again, I will point out, I think that for the second and third period of this game, for 38 and a half of the 40 minutes, I think Canada was the better team. I think the U.S. was incredibly lucky. And again, any goalie in the world other than Connor Hellebuyck in that game, I'm not sure that you get to overtime. I'm genuinely not. I thought that the U.S. was lucky to escape the second period without being in a massive deficit. That third period hit, I had hoped that the U.S. in the third period was going to come out with a lot of piss and vigor, right? Some vim and vigor, right? I thought that they were going to come out and actively try to end the career of some Canadian players. And it didn't happen. Canada dominated that third period largely as well. There were a few moments in the third where it felt like the U.S. might be able to counter, right? That they would get an odd man rush going the other way and they might be able to capitalize. And there was a shot. Let's not forget, there was a shot. Forget who took it. There was a shot, though, in this game that was a double doink. Hit the right post and then shot across to the left post and ricocheted off there as well. So it's not as if the U.S. didn't put pucks on net. But for a good chunk of this game, they were outshot 2-1 by Canada. So this was not the highly contested or hotly contested, where it felt like at any moment anything could happen either way, and it was two heavyweight boxers going the distance. I genuinely felt like Canada dominated most of this game. And yet, you get to overtime. And when you get to overtime, all bets are off. And while there used to be a 4-on-4, you go down to 3-on-3. Now, do I love the Olympic final going down to 3-on-3? I don't. I don't at all. I like 3-on-3 in the NHL to end games in the run of play. I'm not a big fan of the shootout in the NHL. I would rather see a game end in the run of play, even if it's 3-on-3. But when it's the gold medal game, I don't like 3-on-3. I totally understand that it seems like sour grapes from the Canadian fans to say, well, it's not the right way to determine a winner. And then just kind of ignore the fact that Canada, probably would have celebrated just as vociferously as ever if they had won in a 3-on-3 overtime. I will note, I don't think 3-on-3 is the right way to end it. I will not say that it's as stupid, but like the World Cup final can end on penalty kicks, which I hate. I hate that too. But like, if the World Cup said, all right, we're going to go down to 9v9 or 7v7, or we're going to shorten the pitch, or we're going to add a player to each team, I'd say that doesn't feel like it's in the best interest of the game. It seems stupid. And especially for a gold medal game, I'd run this shit until the wheels fall off. Like, somebody needs to make the true case to me. Why should the gold medal game not be a 5-on-5 until there's a winner? All right, fine. You need to put an intermission in between? Cool, put an intermission between overtime and double OT. You're worried about the closing ceremony? Book the hockey tournament a little bit differently so that it doesn't end on the same day as the closing ceremony. Figure it out. But I think that the game truly should end 5v5. And if it takes 3 overtimes, it takes 3 overtimes. It's a hell of a story. Competitor spirit. That's the whole point of the Olympics, right? It's a big part of the Olympics, big part of the Olympic spirit. Now, again, did I celebrate any less chaotically? Did I say to my kids who were jumping up and down on the couch screaming, and my wife who was screaming, and myself who was screaming, did I say, guys, you know what? I understand the excitement that America won, but it wasn't 3-on-3. So let's tamp this down a little bit, shall we? No. You still ultimately win. And this was a triumph for an American team that had a lot of stuff go well and some stuff go very wrong. And this was a tournament. This was a final that featured 2 teams that nearly got upset in the quarterfinals. Now, the semifinals, that was not the case. But in the quarterfinal, Canada almost loses to Czechia. The U.S. was kind of on life support, and Quinn Hughes bailed them out in overtime. This could have been a very different looking final as well. And yet, you got U.S.-Canada. Now, I did make it sound like Canada, trounced Finland, which they did not in the semifinal. That was a heroic comeback by Canada. They were down 2-0. And that was I thought that was a little bit of a choke, but whatever. But you still got USA versus Canada. That's what everybody kind of thought would happen going into the Olympics, and that's what you ultimately got. Now, I will point out, and I know that this is probably not aligned with some of your viewpoints. I do think that it's ultimately a shame that Russia didn't get to compete. I don't care about Russia competing in figure skating, in the luge, in skeleton, in bobsledding. I think it's a shame that the Russian players for the hockey tournament didn't get to play. I would have loved to have just seen the independent federation of whatever get to take the ice. I would have loved to have seen Alex Ovechkin versus Sidney Crosby. I would have. Not in the final. But I would have loved to have gotten to see Alex Ovechkin get one more Olympic run. I think that would have been really cool. I think the likelihood of Crosby and Ovechkin running into each other would have been a hell of a story. And it would have been a really cool moment. Because, Ovechkin doesn't have that many years left. We can look at Crosby and say, there's a non-zero chance that Crosby could be back in 4 years. I mean, he'll be very much at the end of his career. But I still think that there's a non-zero chance Crosby could theoretically play for Canada in 4 years. I'm not saying it's likely, but it's possible. Ovechkin will not be playing in 4 years. Unless the Russians are allowed back in the Olympics and they decide to try to give him some sort of a fond farewell. I don't see it, but I could be wrong. I think that's a shame. I think that we as a hockey-loving community of people were kind of robbed of that. You can have whatever feelings you want to have about geopolitics. We don't get into that on the show. From a pure hockey perspective, I would have loved to have gotten to see Ovechkin have one last run. And I mentioned Crosby, and I'm going to point out this one thing. And I know some people were like, this is an absolutely bullshit take. I felt genuinely horrible for Sidney Crosby not getting to play in this gold medal game. Because while I could conceivably see a path to him playing in 2030, I felt like, yes, the U.S. beat Canada, but Canada with Sidney Crosby is a very different beast than Canada without Sidney Crosby. And it doesn't lessen the excitement and the exuberance around winning it. But man, I felt for Crosby. I did. And I know that we talked about this over on So the Goalie before, but I think that there's a certain level of Crosby where, like, as a Flyers fan, you have hated Crosby since the second he came into the league. And I feel like over the last few years, and maybe it's because of like the coming back from all the concussions, maybe it's because the Flyers haven't been very competitive. You've also seen the Penguins have some down years. I think a lot of the vitriol for Crosby has kind of passed. And what you see now is a guy that is still going to go down as one of the all-time greats. And there will always be an appreciation for that guy. And I think that you've seen that a lot across the league. Crosby was a very hated guy in a bunch of markets, not just Philadelphia. But I think that you've kind of seen and felt that shift. I certainly have. That shift in fan sentiment around Crosby. We've done this before. Like, you talk to Flyers fans at a Flyers-Penguins game and say, hey, what do you think about Crosby? And where it used to be like, fuck that guy, it's now kind of like, yeah, I mean, he's an all-time great. What are you going to do? So I think it's a shame that he didn't get to play in the gold medal game. Radko Gudas leveling him twice. You want to argue they were dirty hits. You want to argue they weren't dirty hits. Are they in the spirit of the Olympics? I don't know. Apparently, reportedly, Crosby was very close to being able to play, but he could not. Now, I did see that with Crosby out, the C went to Connor McDavid. And Connor McDavid has certainly gotten the Stanley Cup Finals, has not won one. And he got to wear the C in this gold medal game for a Canadian team that I think top to bottom you would argue was a more talented team overall. The U.S. really did try to stack their team to have an excellent penalty kill, which it did. Their special teams were fantastic, especially on the penalty kill in this Olympics. But you would probably line these teams up head-to-head and say, yeah, the Canadian team is better and probably clears the U.S. by a bit, at least in terms of top shelf skill. I saw Colby Cohen put out over on Twitter, and I might try to have Colby on at some point in the not-too-distant future. He threw out that kind of thought about how there needs to be a conversation around the always the bridesmaid, never the bride for McDavid. I don't think that this is a poor reflection on him as a captain that Canada lost this game. But I will point out, I tend to think that if Sidney Crosby had played in this game, Canada finds a way to find a second goal. I'm not saying that it would have happened for sure, but I tend to think that Crosby would have found some magic, and Canada probably wins this game in regulation. Could be wrong. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. Not very often, but I could be wrong. I think it's a shame that Crosby didn't ultimately get to play in this gold medal game. I think that this will be the thing that, like, if he hadn't planned on playing another 4 years, or if he hadn't planned on being in shape enough to play in the Olympics, I fully expect that he'll want to get back out there in 4 years. Because to go out like this, to go out not on your own power, right? To go out because Gudas took you out and you couldn't get in the lineup, couldn't be healthy enough, or didn't want to take a spot away potentially from a guy who was healthy and ready to go. I can't imagine Crosby goes out this way, but we'll find out. All right, now I'm going to go over to the comments. I don't have the answer to this, but this is a good point. I'm trying to figure out how to say this name though. Is this Nihao? Wait, Nihao Leo? Is it Nihao Leo? I don't know. Maybe. 3877 says, who coached the PK for the U.S.? Give him his flowers. Or her. Yeah. Whoever the penalty kill coach was for the U.S. crushed it. If somebody knows, you let me know in the comments. They went perfect in this game and in this Olympics. I said very late in this game, it was what, was it the 6.5 minute mark is when the U.S. got a 4-minute, right? It was a double minor penalty for a high stick. And then with like 49 seconds left on that double minor, the U.S. took a penalty, or they committed a penalty. Canada goes on the power play, and it feels like we all kind of know how this one ends. The joke of like the power play merchants, Canada, ultimately happens, and the U.S. killed it off. It was incredible. It was fantastic stuff. All right, let's see. Amadeo asks, was Torts the PK coach? I don't know. If it was Torts, you got to give Torts some credit. Hey, Torts, just out of curiosity, were you the one who coached the PK?
Not answering your questions.
It's not very nice. It's not very nice at all, Torts. Come on now. You could have at least given me an answer. It's kind of hurtful. All right, let's go back out to the comments, though, because this was wild stuff. Chris Freed asks, or says, Flyers congratulated Tocchet and Sanheim in a tweet. Should they have mentioned Torts as well? No, he's not employed by the team anymore. Z2 Bro says, happy snow day, Russ. Happy snow day. That's actually why the show was late today. I was trying to help one of my kids get the microphone on the computer to work, and it didn't work. Didn't work at all. Let's see. Nick Abe says Canada will win the next few. Bedard, Celebrini, Schaefer, Dupont, McKenna, Martone, Misa, Fanta. We don't have to. Nick Abe, don't do this today. All right, we don't need to think about all the young studs that Canada has coming. All right, we don't need that. No one needs that. Okay. Landros, too, says Canada played as well as they could, need to bury chances. Didn't like 3-on-3, but they had 60 minutes to not need that. Let's see. Where are we at? We got a lot of back and forth about the Canadian team. Ford is doing the Lord's work. Says Ford is helping his daughter with virtual school and listening to this and working. Good job, Ford. B. Condor's here, dropping the U.S. flags. Adam Glickus is here with the USA hockey. K-Dub dropping the flags as well. I asked what Canada does better than the U.S. Adam Glickus drops this one. I don't know. Eric Whitman 3 over on YouTube says it's time to be the 51st state. Do you remember? I think I put this thing out not that long ago, but there was apparently the clandestine meeting between Alberta's leadership and the U.S. Alberta's not going to become the 51st state. I don't think. Probably not. Let's see. King Alfred USA says, I do not know if Canadian legislation changed it, but lacrosse, at least up to the 90s, was Canada's national sport by law. Also, lacrosse will be an Olympic sport in the 2028 LA Olympics. So there you go. King Alfred has something that Canada might be better at than the U.S. Let's see. There was another thing that I wanted to show you guys, but I'll go to this real quick. K-Dub 1323 says you can give him all the chances you want. If you don't bury them, you've got no one to blame but yourselves. McKinnon and Taves blew it. Yeah, they both had empty nets that they did not convert. Let's see. Adam Glickus says, I want the Flyers to trade for Binner. That's the guy. You mean Binnington? Nick Abe says, Binnington should never be on a Canadian roster again. That game wasn't his fault. What? Let's see. I'm trying to figure out. There was some. Let's see. Landros says Celebrini missed a couple of one-timers from 15 out as well that he usually doesn't miss. That's true. I am actually going to take you over here, though. This is where I alluded to this earlier, where I pissed off the Leafs fans because Leafs fans are perfectly rational human beings. So I put this out early yesterday, not shortly after the game, but pretty shortly after. And Leafs fans found it, and they lost their ever-loving minds, which was kind of cute and kind of fun. And then a bunch of nameless, faceless accounts really jumped all over it, which I thought was insane. So I tweeted out that Austin Matthews should pick up every bar tab that Connor Hellebuck ever has for the rest of his life. And then I had a bunch of nameless, faceless accounts, and then a couple of other people
say, you don't know hockey, you don't know sport. Austin Matthews had a great game. Here's a shutdown guy on Connor McDavid. You see the opportunities that he took away. McDavid was held out the score sheet for the first time. I think that was Austin Matthews. Blah, blah, blah.
And there's a lot of truth in all of that. There is. But the reason that I tweeted it out was pretty simple. There was an opportunity early in this game, the same way that Canadian fans are chastising Nathan McKinnon for not converting on an empty net. There was a play in this game where Austin Matthews had the opportunity to shoot in close, and a guy of his pedigree you would expect to probably take this shot, and he didn't. And I'm not insane for saying that this would have been a lasting image if the U.S. had lost. People would have come back around to Austin Matthews again because, for better or worse, Austin Matthews is typically one that shoulders blame when the Maple Leafs come up short. Although last year, the Leafs fans ran Mitch Marner off, due in part to the fact that they shit all over Mitch Marner, but they do with Austin Matthews as well. And then there are questions about, well, if Matthews is the captain, shouldn't he be the guy who can ultimately get the job done? Matthews was the captain of this team. Almost immediately after this play happened in the game, you had like Bleacher Report, BR Open Ice, and some other accounts comparing this to the play where Ben Simmons against the Atlanta Hawks in the playoffs passes the ball when he's under the hoop, and like you could just go up with the ball. If the U.S. had lost, this is an image that would have followed Austin Matthews for a bit. It would have. And yet, it doesn't follow him because the U.S. wins. Now, you could make the case, and some people did. Some people argued in, I don't know, like pretty decent faith that Tkachuk is there, maybe has a better angle. The goalie is on this post. Perhaps the pass across to Tkachuk, he could bury it. He has an easier time and a better angle to try to bury it. But this is a thing that would have stuck out because one of the other things that we saw, let me see if I can play this game over here real quick. There was an image that was going around like this, right? It doesn't show Tkachuk. I like to show context. It was this, and it was that Matthews chose to pass here instead of shoot. Now, when you have the full context of the image, I would agree. Tkachuk is open. Tkachuk does potentially have a better angle to jam this one home. But again, if Connor Hellebuyck doesn't stand on his head, if Connor Hellebuyck doesn't absolutely dominate the Canadians in this game, that image of Matthews choosing to pass instead of shoot probably follows him for a bit and probably compounds a complicated legacy that he's had with the Maple Leafs. So there you go. Simple conversation. Try to keep it simple. So this was the U.S. and Canada. We got to see the two teams we wanted to see go head-to-head in this tournament, and we were treated to a heck of a game. If you're an American fan, you were probably chewing your nails down till there was nothing left or until your nail beds bled. If you're a Canadian fan, you were probably slamming your head against the wall a considerable number of times in this game with all the opportunities that were not executed on. Now, Landros is not wrong here. Says for all the yapping that Tkachuks did, thought they were both invisible yesterday. And that's one of the things that the Leafs fans who got very upset about the Matthews tweet, they pointed out a lot about young Tkachuk, Brady, and Matthew, both underperforming. Where's the criticism of the Tkachuks? So there you go. Let me see if there was anything else that I wanted to get to. Adam Gleek is here with an idea. Says, McKinnon should have worn the C. He won a cup. McJesus showed up in the finals. McKinnon being the captain would have been a pretty interesting call. It was also probably worth noting that McDavid ended up getting named. McDavid got named the player of the tournament. He was like the Olympic playoff hockey MVP. Kudos to him. I did have a question, though, right after the game. I was like, is the Team Canada account going to put out something similar to what they did with the women's team, which was silver shines just as bright? I was like, they can't possibly do that, right? And they didn't. Their account tweeted out something. I think it was in all caps. It was like Canada wins the silver. And they also sent out a proud of this team. Yeah, here we go. Silver for Team Canada. Here we go. All caps, by the way, just in case they didn't get the point across. Here you go. This is, there we go. Silver for Team Canada. Cool. Now, there is something that I wanted to really quickly point out to the people, okay? But I don't need some of the folks who are kind of psychotic to lose their minds about it, okay? Here's the thing. There was a post game for the ages. An absolute insane clip that came out. So you had Dylan Larkin on Instagram Live taking video from inside the locker room. And then Kash Patel, the FBI director, is in the background, which then sparked all kinds of wonderful discourse on Twitter about should he have been there, should he not? He's a hockey player and has been an advocate, for the hockey team and all that. And apparently he's friends with a bunch of guys on the team. But there was a video that came out because Kash Patel had Trump on the phone. And, I thought it was pretty wild because it's the most human, like the most excited I think I've ever heard Trump sound. He was very clearly proud of the U.S. team. I'm going to see if I can find the exact moment because there was something funny that he did say on the call. We'll see if I can get this one tuned up. Let me see. It was when they cut back to... Yeah, there we go. Here it is. So we'll play this really quick. So Kash Patel, FBI director, is in the locker room with the U.S. team. And Trump has a line about Connor Hellebuck that you have to hear. Here we go.
1 minute. 1 minute. And by the way, your goalie played not bad.
Howie, say hi. Howie, say hi to him.
How you doing, Don?
I think that was the funniest exchange, right? Had a pretty good game. Yeah, it was a very good game. I love the fact that Hellebuck, when he's told, say something back to the president of the United States, he goes, "What up, Don?" I thought that was funny. Now, you might hate Trump. You might hate the fact that these guys talk to the president on a video call or on a call or whatever in the locker room. I think you're an insane person if your big takeaway from this is all these guys should burn. I saw some people on Twitter this morning in the least shocking development ever.
I hope their legacies are tarnished forever. Fuck all these guys. I don't care. I don't want them to represent America.
Everybody just chill out, okay? It's a friendly call. Now, if these guys show up at the State of the Union, which is what they were allowed to do, right? Like they were offered, I guess, a military plane to get them to the State of the Union. You can feel however you want if they go to the State of the Union. In that moment post-game, if Trump calls them, if Biden calls them, if Bush calls them, if Obama calls them, if Clinton calls them, it's a good moment. I don't know. I guess I'm just crazy. I guess I'm crazy. Maybe it's just me. So, that was it. I think it was the last thing that I saw. There was a clip. I can't show it because it was on NBC. There was a clip with Quinn Hughes where he's asking for another beer. Hilarious. There's a moment where Mike Tirico goes out to Jack Hughes, Quinn Hughes, and Connor Hellebuck. And Quinn Hughes looks absolutely gone. Like, totally gone. Those guys are probably having a rager in Milan. And by the way, I forgot to do this, but we have to give Jack Hughes a lot of credit. Because while this was largely the Connor Hellebuck game, unbelievably clutch moment by Quinn Hughes. Like, unbelievably clutch. This is going to go down as one of the most iconic images. You can absolutely see this 20, 30, 40 years from now being the lasting image of these Olympics. This picture of Jack Hughes. I mean, he takes a high stick, snaps at least, one tooth there, blood in the mouth, looks like an absolutely psychotically proud American guy, draped in the flag. You could say what you want to say about Jack Hughes. There have been some who have called him soft. There have been some who have questioned his career thus far with the Devils. This dude understands pressure. And one of the wild things that came out after the fact is that apparently the night before, the night leading into the gold medal game, Jack Hughes and Quinn Hughes sharing a room as brothers. And apparently they couldn't sleep. And Jack apparently told Quinn he couldn't stop thinking about scoring the overtime winner in the gold medal game. So, pretty wild stuff. And good for him. By the way, Joseph DeAngelis is right. Reminds you of the Bobby Clark holding the cup image. That iconic picture. I think it's really, really neat. As a really, really cool moment. The coolest moment, though, and the most iconic image, and the one that I will try really hard to get through, but man, it absolutely tore me up as a dad. This American team, who again, this is where people getting so lost in politics and making it their full identity have lost the fucking plot. The people who are hoping for any of the guys in the locker room to have their legacies tarnished, or they don't deserve to have a good legacy now because they took a call from the president in the locker room after the game. The reason that those people are fucking psychotic, and I will happily stand by the belief that those people are psychotic, is because it totally then glosses over one of the most incredible human moments in this entire tournament, one of the most human moments that you will ever see. And that is what the hockey team did with Johnny Gaudreau's jersey, and then most notably with Johnny Gaudreau's children. Now, again, if you are one of the psychotic people who saw a video of the U.S. team drunk and excited to take a phone call from Donald Trump in the locker room, and you want these people to be burned at the stake and have their legacies tarnished, I want you to try to rationalize that and do the math on it and reconcile that with this image. I just want, for people who make politics their main identity in this world, I want those people to explain how you could say that about a group of guys who did this. First, we saw the guys skate around with Johnny Gaudreau's jersey. We got to see that almost as soon as the game was over. They brought the jersey out of the locker room and they skated around the ice with it. Beautiful moment. They take a team picture. Beautiful moment. And then there is a moment where the guys stay on the ice, and apparently I was listening to 32 Thoughts. They were talking about how tough the security can be. They don't let anybody on the ice. They don't let anybody in that inner circle, in that ring. Remember, there are no seats up against the glass. Security's incredibly tight. And you go, what are they doing? What's going on? And you see the American players go out, and they go get Johnny Gaudreau's little kids. They go get two of his kids, and they bring those kids on the ice with the jersey, and they take a picture. Because this image says far more than 1,000 words. This is a group of guys who missed their friend. This is a group of guys who went to battle with Johnny Gaudreau and who wanted him represented not just in name and number of a jersey. They went out and got his children and brought them on the ice to have that moment and that legacy last forever. That is a beautiful moment, and that is the sign of good human beings. And you could disagree with them politically, but if you can somehow see that and say, I want those guys to no longer have a good legacy and to be forever hated because they took a call post-game in the locker room, if you see that, and that doesn't do more for you to speak to the humanity of these guys, something's wrong. Something's wrong. I thought it was a really, really cool moment. I thought it was a really great moment. And as a dad, I absolutely had tears. You know, I have to do one of the, as a man, I have to admit that I had a couple of, I had some sweat coming from my eyes. Now, if you watch that and you felt emotional about it, there's nothing wrong with that. That is a beautiful moment. Kudos to these guys for going out, paying tribute, and including his kids. I thought it was a really sweet moment. It was a great moment. That, to me, is the lasting image. The Jack Hughes picture draped in the flag is certainly one of them. The one where they bring out Johnny Gaudreau's kids and they take that team picture, that, to me, is the lasting image of these Olympics. All right. K-Dub says, that moment was by far my highlight. Adam Gleeka says, I love Johnny Hockey and what USA Hockey did for his family. That was a really, really cool thing. I genuinely did. All right. I think that's about it. Chris Reed says, tell us how you really feel. There you go. You get it. AJ says, I teared up at Johnny Hockey's kids on the ice. You had to. I mean, like it was a beautiful moment. It was so cool. I think it's one thing when they took the jersey around, I was like, that's really cool. I was like, that's really nice. When they went and got the kids, and you know what? We have to give kudos. I don't know who was involved in it or who was involved with it, but again, apparently that security perimeter around the rink is like almost impenetrable. Like there are players who did not get to suit up for the US or Canada in this game, and they weren't allowed to like be down by the rink. They had to be like backstage, right? They weren't allowed at the ice. So think about how tight of a security perimeter there is around that rink. Whoever was involved in figuring out how to get Johnny Gaudreau's kids from the stands down to the ice, kudos to all those people. May they find the most success they've ever had, the best years they've ever had. All the good karma goes their way. Kudos to them for letting it happen. Okay. There we go. I'm good. We're done with the hockey. We're done with the Olympics for now. By the way, nice big audience this morning over on YouTube. I appreciate that. Thanks for being here. If you haven't done so already, like the video, share the video, subscribe, ring the bell so you get notified every time the show goes live. We have decided for this week that we're going to do the show at 10 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Typically, things are already, kind of chaotic, right? It doesn't always happen that the show has a set time, but we're trying it this week, 10 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So if you're new to the show, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if the 10 a.m. thing works out. Okay. Now, we have a couple of other things that we need to talk about. Most notably, we had Bryce Harper broke some news that is interesting considering that he's Mr. Keep it in-house guy. And then we had the Sixers have a big win last night. Where do you want to go? I don't know. I have to tell you, I might keep the positivity going here really quickly with a very brief note on the Sixers before we go over to what happened with the Phillies. But Tyrese Maxey absolutely put Anthony Edwards on a poster last night. It was one of the most incredible moments I've seen in a while. He was fantastic. I can't show you the clip because if I show it to you, let's see, can I? Let me see. I can freeze frame it though. If I freeze frame it, yeah, that's what I'll do. All right. YouTube can't get mad at me if I freeze frame an image. See, I got my workarounds. I just want you to see this really quickly. This is Tyrese Maxey putting Anthony Edwards on a poster. I love Anthony Edwards as a player, by the way. One of the most dynamic and fun players to watch. Gives you like shades of Michael Jordan. But man, Tyrese Maxey went up and over. Here we go. Tyrese Maxey. I don't think I've ever seen him so ferociously dunk a ball. Dunks it on two guys, including Ant-Man right there. Bang. All right, so he dunks it on Anthony Edwards. Now, we could end the story there, but I think it's always interesting to hear how a guy reacts to being dunked on. And I think it's interesting to see how this league thinks of Tyrese Maxey. So I actually want to go out to Anthony Edwards' post-game remarks because the Sixers, I mean, they decimated the Timberwolves on Sunday night. But really quick, this was Anthony Edwards after the game about getting posterized by Tyrese Maxey.
Came into the league together,
Yeah.
been friends, played in the All-Star game
Yeah.
together. What was it like, kind of that battle?
Yeah, he's incredible, man. He already know he one of my favorite players to watch in the league. He dunked on me today too. I don't really like that, but yeah, he played great, man. He played
I was going to ask about the dunk.
Yeah.
You
It
looked
was
like,
very-
you, looked
I
like
mean,
you didn't see
Yeah.
action, but
Well, I didn't know that he was
yeah.
going downhill. I just ended up turning my head, and I'm thinking he gonna lay it up, and then he went and punched it. It was like a little quick dunk too. I couldn't even get a chance to block it. But yeah, that's why we play the game. I'm not mad at that.
So anyway, I thought it was cool. I think it's a cool moment of, you have those thoughts of like great respect's great. Anthony Edwards is easily one of the best young players in the league. They've very much built Minnesota around him. Again, as a player, I think Anthony Edwards is awesome. He's got a killer mentality. So him going out and saying that Maxey is this awesome player, one of his favorite to watch, yada, 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 I think is a cool thing. We talked about this last week. I love Tyrese Maxey, the basketball player. I love the positivity the guy brings. It seems like he's got a smile that lights up a room. I think that the Sixers have done organizational malpractice by not adding to this team, especially at the deadline, letting Jared McCain go, as Daryl Morey smugly said that he was confident that he sold high on Jared McCain. I think that it was organizational malpractice to not bring a single soul in here who could help Tyrese Maxey further, especially when they knew that Paul George was suspended. Joel Embiid remains out. It is certainly concerning between the right knee management and the shin issue that he had ramping up over All-Star weekend. Not great. And yet, you got to see what this thing looks like when Tyrese Maxey just goes off. And last night's game is one that the Sixers hopefully will build some kind of momentum on. It's a 27-point win on the road. They outscored the Timberwolves by 17 points in the second half. They outscored Minnesota by 11 points in the final frame. It was a good comprehensive win for your team, your town, your Philadelphia 76ers. Kelly Oubre had a couple of moments in this game too. Step back jumpers, in rhythm, like out of his mind. I don't know what the hell Kelly Oubre was thinking, but like he was on. He was on in certain moments. Overall, didn't have a great game from the field. Shot pretty well from beyond the arc, but he was shooting confidently. I don't know what to make of it, but he played well. Now, Maxey had 39 points in the game, which you would expect. VJ Edgecombe, who I continue to say needs to be the guy who steps up the most with Joel Embiid out and with Paul George out. Edgecombe had 18 attempts from the field in this game, went 6 of 7 from beyond the arc, had 24 points of his own to go along with 7 rebounds, 2 steals, and an assist. If this team is going to make the playoffs, if this team is going to avoid the play-in, if this team is going to be in any way, shape, or form a competitive squad down the stretch, the rest of this Sixers season, the rest of this regular season, they are going to desperately need VJ Edgecombe to be that 1-2 punch, to be the Robin to Tyrese Maxey's Batman. And whenever the moment comes that Joel Embiid is healthy and returns to the lineup, and Paul George comes back, hopefully in the best shape of his life, right, ready to go, hopefully they'll be able to carry some kind of momentum into the playoffs. If Edgecombe isn't on and it's just Tyrese Maxey, that's where you're going to run into a real issue. That's where I start to have legitimate concerns about whether or not they have enough firepower to even make the playoffs. We will see. Cam Payne, by the way, who came back from abroad, 1 for 5 from the field, 1 for 3 from downtown, had 3 points to go with 2 rebounds and 3 assists. So welcome back, Cam Payne. Welcome back. All right. Let's see. What is happening over here? Chris Freed says, will Embiid play again this season? It does feel like his time in Philly is quickly coming to an end. No, it doesn't. That's insane. Yes, he's going to play again this season. His time isn't coming to an end. His contract is insane. No one's trading for that contract. And up until about 2 weeks ago, we were all talking about how he looked as good physically as he has in years. No, his time in Philly isn't coming quickly to an end. He's got an extension, and nobody's trading for that. No. Don't be a prisoner of the moment. Nick Abe says, I would trade Embiid in the offseason. I don't think any team in the league would take him. And even if you could find a team to take Joel Embiid, my question is, what kind of value are you getting back? You're not going to retain salary. So, what are you going to do? You're going to just take crumbs to move off of Embiid? Some people might argue that they should. Is there a free agent that comes up in the next offseason or two that you feel like better fits with Maxey and Edgecombe? Maybe. And maybe you have that conversation, but I don't see it. Let's see. Landro says the GM is an idiot. President of basketball operations is kind of adult. Again, said he sold high on Jared McCain. Don't if you want to save your sanity, don't go look at the last few box scores for Jared McCain with Oklahoma City. Don't go watch any of the highlights of Jared McCain playing for Oklahoma City. You'll lose your mind. Havokin says they did it to Iverson the one good season when they started out like 14-0, put some pieces around him, and then he gets to the finals and then nothing later. I don't think we're quite there, but man, I have like legitimate concerns and legitimate issues with this front office. I'll also note that my disdain isn't just for Daryl Morey. I have legitimate questions around Nick Nurse as well. I do. You watch some of the actions that Jared McCain has been running with Oklahoma City, and it doesn't look anything like how Nick Nurse was using Jared McCain this season. I kind of wonder whether or not Nick Nurse was part of the reason, if Nick Nurse was behind some of the push to moving off of Jared McCain. Now I have to look at this because Landro says that Risto is trending on X. Is he? I think that ultimately, like, if you want to live in a world where Rasmus Ristolainen moves on, like, I think that there are going to be teams that are going to be interested in Risto after how he did at the Olympics. And if you're the Flyers, you should absolutely capitalize. I don't think Risto's stock is ever going to be higher than it is now. Because make no mistake about it, Rasmus Ristolainen had a really nice Olympics for Finland. He did. And especially in their last game, he was noticeable in a good way. I don't think that Risto makes sense on this Flyers team. But if you have teams that are going to actively go after him, and that was reported now by Daily Faceoff, saying, according to sources, half a dozen teams interested in Ristolainen. After an impressive showing at the Olympics, Ristolainen has generated interest from a handful of teams in recent weeks, according to Anthony DeMarco. So there you go. This is like one of those rare times where going off and playing in the Olympics maybe gets the juices flowing again. I will say, if the Flyers were serious about moving Risto before or being open to it, now is the time. Because remember, the Flyers, which is going to be some interesting hockey to go back to watching after the Olympics, they were kind of falling out of it anyway. If you move Risto, to me, that's kind of like moving Walker a couple of seasons ago, right? Like, Danny Briere could still say that the players are going to kind of show and indicate and dictate the path that the team takes. If they move Risto and they can get a first-round pick, which I think is totally feasible, if they can move Risto for a first, or they can move Risto for a first and a prospect or something, you have to do it if you're the Flyers. Absolutely have to do it. Even if you retain some salary to get a better pick or to get a better player, better prospect, hell yeah. You do it. This team isn't close. Risto doesn't make any sense on this squad. Move on. Totally fine. Have at it. The only other player who probably raised his stock significantly is Travis Sanheim, but you're not moving Travis Sanheim. Let's see. Landro says, funny how 5 games changed the Risto narrative. Yep. That's the one beautiful thing about if you go off and you play really well. It could change it. Because remember, before the Olympics, the thought was he has to prove he could stay healthy. Well, he played really well in the Olympics, and now all of a sudden, having this conversation. Havokin says, Russ, did Vladar play make the Flyers better than what they really were? Yeah. The way that Vladar played in the first half of the season absolutely hid a lot of errors and a lot of issues that the Flyers have. 100%. There's no doubt. Linda Joseph says, somewhere Ant is yelling that Russ is wrong and wants to trade everyone. Yeah, he says that. He does. I think you absolutely trade Risto. I've been banging the drum for about 2 years now. Trade Risto. Whenever his stock is high, just trade him. Move on. It's okay. He's been a good player for the team. Move on. You can get something of value for him. Cool. Move on. Team's not good enough. He's not like 23. Move on. It's fine. All right, so we got the Sixers, and last thing I want to do is the Phillies. We have to talk about the Phillies. The reason we have to talk about the Phillies is because Bryce Harper did something that he said he wasn't going to do. I mean, if you remember, not that long ago, Bryce Harper was chastising Dave Dombrowski publicly for something that I actually said Dave Dombrowski was correct about, saying that Bryce Harper didn't have an elite season last year. And then Harper has gone on to podcasts and such and then talked to the media and said that he didn't have the season he wanted to, which would inherently kind of imply that he also agrees he didn't have an elite season. But Bryce Harper mentioned that he was under the impression that things were supposed to be kept in-house with the Phillies. And that's what he was told, and that's what he was promised. Okay. Well, Bryce Harper broke some news about one of his teammates, and it wasn't a veteran teammate. He didn't break news about JT Realmuto. He didn't break news about Kyle Schwarber. He broke news about one of their young players, one of the guys that, stood to maybe not make the team out of camp, but certainly could get a look. And if the Phillies were ever actually able to move Alec Boehm, the guy who'd most likely slot into the lineup and be part of the infield is Aidan Miller. Well, I just want you to hear this really quickly because I thought this was somewhat interesting. Bryce Harper talks to Ruben Amaro, talks to Tom McCarthy, and he drops this little nugget in the 6th inning of the Phillies game against the Pirates.
Yeah, if Miller could get off his butt and get in the game, that'd be nice. I'm just kidding. Aidan, I'm just kidding, buddy. I need him to get healthy.
So he starts by joking that he needs to get off his butt and get in the game. And then he says, I'm just kidding, Aidan, buddy. And then listen to this.
I need him to get healthy because he could help us by the end, obviously. But no, I think
he needs to get healthy. He needs to get healthy. This is interesting and notable because there was no conversation. There was no conversation about Aidan Miller being injured. No one had gone public with it. Certainly the organization had not gone public with it. But Bryce Harper broke the news. Very interesting. Again, we're going to keep everything in-house. He's the one who goes out and breaks this news about Aidan Miller, which then led the Phillies to run some kind of cover. And presumably, somebody passed info along to Todd Zielecki, who, I like Todd Zielecki. Todd Zielecki seems like a good dude, good reporter, right? For MLB.com. But Todd Zielecki, not that long after Harper drops this nugget on the telecast, tweets out the following. Phillies prospect Aidan Miller has a sore back. Phillies want to be careful with him, so he's taking it easy this week, getting treatment. If he was healthy, he would have played yesterday. So, okay. Do we feel better about that? I don't know. I'm not trying to drum up some controversy here. I'm just merely holding Bryce Harper to the same standard that he was apparently trying to hold the organization to, and that he came into camp holding the organization to, and actively complained openly about Dave Dombrowski not keeping things in-house. But Bryce Harper dropped the nugget, the little knowledge bomb on the telecast that Aidan Miller was hurt, and then the Phillies had to run some kind of, not counter-narrative, but they had to do a little bit of damage control and publicly put out there that, yes, Aidan Miller is injured. He has a sore back. Okay. Cool. I don't know what to make of that. If this is going to be like a weird power play thing that Harper does all season, though, then it's going to get ugly. We'll see if it happens. I'm going to go out to the comments here before we head out, before we roll out. Nick Abe says, I've seen stuff that the Bears might move to Indiana. That was the thing that did come out late last week. They are looking to move southeast and like right over the border in Indiana. Can you still be the Chicago Bears and play in Indiana? I would argue, yeah, because New York doesn't play in New York. The Giants and the Jets play in New Jersey. The New York Red Bull, they play in New Jersey. So, yeah. I think they can still be the Chicago Bears, but it is kind of weird. Weird to think about. Chris Freed says, what a year for football in Indiana. A college national championship and getting the Bears to move to their state. Nick Abe says, you're about to hit 2,000 subscribers. Let me see. Where are we at on the subscribers right now on the channel? We are currently at 1,994, which means at least one person subscribed during the show today. We are 6 subscribers away from 2,000. It would be swell to hit that number in the not too distant future. If you haven't done so already, like the video, share the video, subscribe. It does help. This is more of like a vanity thing to just be able to say got to 2,000. Would be nice. Would be lovely. We talk about all kinds of stuff on the show here. We often talk about Philadelphia sports and dissect the media who cover them. We also get to national stuff, like we talked for a good chunk of today's show about the gold medal game in the Olympics. Of course, you can come here for your Flyers talk, your Sixers talk, your Phillies talk, your Eagles talk, even sometimes your Union talk. I don't want to go fully negative to end the show, but the Philadelphia Union losing their season opener against DC United and being scored on by Ty Baribo, who they sent away to DC for a lot of money, but they sent away Ty Baribo and he scores the game-winning goal against them. Not ideal. Not ideal at all. Nick Abe asks, McKenna talk? We could talk about McKenna another day. Maybe. Let's see. Linda Joseph says, Bryce is a bigger diva than A.J. Brown. I want you to do me a favor, Len. Call WIP today and throw that out there. Just go do it now. What's 11 o'clock? So you get the midday show, and then you can call the afternoon show, and then tomorrow morning, call the morning show. And I want to see if you can get this to take fire. Can it catch fire? Can you pour gasoline on the fire? I want you to go call each WIP show and throw out the idea that Bryce Harper is a bigger diva than A.J. Brown. Let's see if we can get like 7 different polls going up about it. That'd be a lot of fun. Dark Mingo Quack, by the way, before we roll out, says such a union thing to happen. Yes, getting scored on by their former player who they sent away. Hey, we got another subscriber. We're up to 1,995. Only 5 subscribers to go. We could do like the really awkward, I love WRTI. I talked about this with Kincaid on Friday, but like, I love WRTI. Philadelphia's home for classical and jazz music, right? Loved it since I was a little kid. They do their like member drive, and they talk about how they need your support, they need your financial support, and all that lovely stuff. I don't do that, but I will point out that it would be cool to get to 2,000. I'm not going to hold you here against your will until we get to 2,000. Oh, it was Dealey. Thank you, Dealey. Dealey75x3 says you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I think that's it for today. I'll be back on Wednesday at 10 a.m. We're going to do 10 a.m. again on Wednesday here on The Russ Joy Show. Do me a favor if you haven't done so already. Like the video, share the video, subscribe. Ring the bell to get notified whenever we go live with the show. Don't forget, you can also find short-form content around this show on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. If you see the stuff, you can follow those accounts. You can like those videos. It just helps the show get out there to even more people. And do me a favor, if you like the podcast feed better, or if you're just like, hey, I don't want to stream a YouTube show while I'm driving later on, you can go find the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts. Do me a favor, if you go out and shovel today, be very, very careful, right? If you didn't keep up with the shoveling overnight, there is like a nasty layer of like heavy concrete-esque slush on the bottom of the snow. Don't go and like hurt yourself, all right? Take your time out there as you go and you do the shoveling of the snow. Okay? All right. I like this. Ford says, like, subscribe, share it with your ex. That's right. I used to say stuff like that. Yeah. Share it with an ex-girlfriend, ex-boyfriend, ex-whoever. Yeah. Friends that you haven't talked to in years, just send them the subscription link to the Russ Joy Show on YouTube. When they say, what the hell is this? Who's this like racially ambiguous guy with a mustache? Who is this guy? Why do I care? You just say subscribe. Help the guy out. All right. I think that's it. All right. Until Wednesday, this has been the Russ Joy Show, and I've been Russ Joy, but you knew that already because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. Good job to the U.S. hockey team, the men's team, the women's team, to all the athletes who went over. Alyssa Liu, who won the first gold medal for a U.S. skater. Was it just women's skater? Or it was any skater, like 20-something years. Kudos to her. She crushed it. Good job to all of the U.S. To quote the great Ian Darke, go, go, USA. Talk to all of you Wednesday here on The Russ Joy Show. Bye now.